Hello there again. Right, now I'm just going to give you a little lesson on coordinates. Have fun. Right, so this is a typical coordinates kind of question. This is actually one of the harder of the types of questions. So if you can crack this one, then you should be able to crack all the other ones in the examples that I'm going to give you. So as you can see, this is with this question we've got a rectangle. The rectangle has got points A, B, C and D. Okay, and what I've done is I have put the coordinates for each of the corners up here. So for example, the letter A is it says it's at position 2, 3. Now that means, if we just draw a little dotted line down there, that means that A is 2 along and 3 up. Okay, and that's how we do coordinates. Remember, we always go along and then up. Sometimes people say you go along the corridor and then up the stairs. Sometimes people say you do the x-axis first, and we always do a curly x so it doesn't look like multiplication, and then you do the y-axis just there. Whichever way you do it, just remember you go along and then up. Okay, so A is at 2, 3. What you also notice is that you have a comma between them so that it doesn't look like 23, and you have brackets so that again, so that it just tidies them up. Okay, so let's put the other dotted lines on. B is at 8, 3. That means that we go, remember, along first then up. So 8, it's 8 along. And then B, because it's a rectangle, B is at the same height as A, so therefore it's at 3. Point C is at 8, 7. So remember, we go along to point 8, which is already written down for us, and then up to C. So C is 7 points up. So what we do is we go along here, and that is number 7 just there. And then D is 2 along. Can you see the number 2 there? And then 7 up, and that's why D is 2, 7. And then the question says where is X and where is Y? Okay, where is X and where is Y? So we'll do this. Oh, sorry, what you also need to know is that X is halfway along. So let's just write down halfway. X is halfway along the bottom line. So X is halfway between A and B. Pardon me. Now, if A is at 2 and B is at 8, then halfway has got to be, well, you think about it, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, well, let's guess. Let's say it's at 4. Well, if it was at 4, then between A and X, between 2 and 4, that's just 2 spaces. But from 4 to 8, that's 4 spaces. So that's wrong. It can't possibly be at position 4. And what I'm sure you're all telling me, shouting at me now, is that this must be 5, because 5 is midway between 2 and 8. Okay, so position X, we can already start to do this. Remember, put the bracket in first. We go along 5 and then up. Well, we know how far we're going up because we've already written that down, haven't we? We've already written it as 3. So therefore X is 5 along and 3 up. Okay, let me just show you again. 5 along and then 3 up. And then position Y, if you've got X, then you're probably halfway to getting Y already. Y is also halfway between this point D and this point C. Okay, now D, I'll just put the numbers up here. D is 2 and C is 8. And remember, that number shows how far along those 2 points are. So if that's 2 and that's 8, then once again this must be 5. So position Y is, once again, bracket first, and then we do, what do we do? We do, what are we doing? A Y, we're doing, oh yes, sorry. So what, I completely forgot where I was then. So Y is 5 along and then 7 up. So we go 5 and 7 and then the bracket. So for this question then we found out position X and position Y. As I said, this is quite a tricky one. What I'll do now is I will rub the board and put on a slightly easier question for you. Right, are you ready for this one? Now, I did say that, hello, I did say that this was going to be easier than the last one, and drawing it out, I've just thought I've actually made it a lot more difficult, I think, but we shall tackle it together, do not worry. Now, the first thing to notice is, of course, that I can't draw straight lines on a whiteboard, so I should have used a ruler, but I didn't. So Mrs. Mouse loses 1 coin. Dear, dear, dear me. Now, next thing. The question would say something like, here is a rectangle, and we've drawn we've drawn 2 sides of the rectangle. Let me make it much, much bolder for you. So we've drawn A to B, and then B goes across to C, and of course the last point of the rectangle is D. And the question would say something like, where is the point D? Okay, now if you were looking at this, you'd probably say, well, if it's a rectangle, then something that we know about a rectangle is that it's got 2 long sides and 2 short sides. We also know that the 2 long sides are opposite and the 2 short sides are opposite. So this is the long side, B and C. So therefore opposite, which is up here, must be the other long side. So the long side is going to go across there somewhere. This is one of the short sides, and it goes, so here it is, and the other short side is going to be opposite, so therefore it's here. So therefore the short side will go from C up to D, and then look where they cross. Yeah, where they cross, that is where point D is. So if I put a nice big blob there, that will be D. Now the question isn't draw the blob and point D, it's actually tell you where it is. So remember, with coordinates, this is how we write them down. Now we need to know how far along is point D and how far up is point D. Now what we do know is that D is the same distance along. If I use my pen as a marker, D is at the same point as point C. So when I put my pen above point C, it's also point D. It sort of hides them at the same time. So really we need to find out how far along is point C. Now this is the slightly tricky thing, but hopefully it won't catch you out. Point C is somewhere between 12 and 14. Now I know some of you might be tempted to say, well, if it's halfway along it must be 12 and a half. But you'd be wrong. It's 13. So therefore, point C is 13 squares along. Okay? Or 13 units along, rather. So that's part of it. So if point C is 13 along, point D must be 13 along. So therefore, the first position, the first part of D, rather, is 13. Now we have to do the same thing working our way upwards. Well, we can see that D is at the same height as A. So A is 2, 4, 6, somewhere between 6 and 8, and obviously between 6 and 8 is 7. So therefore if A is 7 from the bottom line here, then D must be 7 from the bottom line as well. So therefore, point D is at 13.7. Well, I hope you liked that little video, and what I suggest you do now is have a go at some of the questions in the document at the bottom of the page, just down there somewhere. Bye bye.